A number of years ago, I was sitting on a plane going to Israel, and there's a man sitting next to me, an elderly man, who pulled out from his carry-on bag, pulled out a photocopy of an old newspaper, of an Israeli newspaper, in Hebrew, of course, probably from 20, 30 years earlier, and he asked me to read one column on the newspaper. What he showed me, just one story. And the story was a story of the Holocaust. And it was a story of the Klausenberger Rebbe, one of the great figures pre-war, during the war, after the war, who lost everything. Lost 11 children, lost his wife, lost his community, and was able to rebuild life, and not only that, but recommit himself to Torah learning, to teaching, to education, to healing. He established the Leonardo Hospital in Netanya in Israel. An extraordinary figure. And the story that this man showed me dealt with what happened in the Holocaust in Auschwitz. And it detailed how the Klausenberger Rebbe had made a request. He wanted to put on tefillin. Is there anyone who has a pair of tefillin? And they searched far and wide, and finally they found that there was a young boy from Riga who had somehow managed to smuggle tefillin, a pair of tefillin, into the concentration camp, into Auschwitz. And they were able to bring the boy to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe borrowed the tefillin in Auschwitz, put on the tefillin, wrapped the tefillin, and then gave it back to the boy. And then day after day, they would call the boy in, and he would help give the tefillin to the Rebbe would put on tefillin. What an extraordinary moment of sacrifice, what an extraordinary moment of mitzvah. And then the article said that this all stopped when they hotziuhu min hamachane, when they brought him out of the camp. And the elderly man said, "What do you think this means?" Talking about the boy, "What do you think this means?" I said, "Well, the way these stories go, tragically, it likely means that they brought the boy out of the camp to kill him, to end his life. And that's why the Klausenberger Rebbe stopped putting on tefillin in that moment, or didn't have that pair accessible to him, because the boy was no longer living." And the man said, "No, it's actually not true. They brought him out of the camp in order to put him on a work detail, the young boy, to put him on a work detail, and actually he survived the war." And he said, "I know that because that young boy was me. It was my tefillin that the Klausenberger Rebbe put on in Auschwitz," this man told me. It was such a moving story, the kind of story that perhaps can only be told in those moments on the way to Israel, and knowing that the Jewish response to difficult times, to challenging times, is to commit to mitzvot, is to bring light to darkness. And my observation as we prepare to enter this Shabbat, my observation is that it was a very dark week. And last week, the tragedy at Meron on Lag BaOmer, where 45 holy Jewish souls perished. And it's an extraordinarily difficult situation, and of course the accountability and the responsibility, but not for now. And one of the moments of light, or aspects of light and inspiration, has come in hearing the stories that have emerged at the Shiva. The story of Dovi Steinmetz, a Montrealer, who the last time he was seen alive, his last moments of life, as his family is sitting Shiva now for him, but his last moments of life, he was protecting a young child. He was saving another life. And it's an extraordinary story. And to hear the stories of Donnie Morris, of the son of our dear friends, my childhood friend Aryeh Morris and his wife Merlana, an extraordinary family of holiness and commitment to Judaism, and certainly as parents, they did a great deal of good and right in terms of creating this child who was special and holy and devoted and committed to his faith, and a role model. And so to hear the commitments, there's a website now dedicated called Donnie's Seder, which is dedicated to recreating, replicating, following in the path of Donnie Morris as he was studying at Yeshivat Shalavim. And at the funeral, personally feeling that personal connection to his family, and also the rabbis who were speaking were my rabbis as well when I studied at that yeshiva. And his Seder, the Hebrew word Seder, means the order of his day, because one of the papers that they found in his possession, or on his place, on his makom in the yeshiva, was his schedule for the day, which was such an intense learning schedule. But not only containing learning, it also contained notes for times where he would do other things, such as now is a break for a snack, now is a break for, and also call grandma. Now is the time in the day where we don't want to forget to reach out to those we love, to reach out to our families. And so following in his footsteps, and I encourage our congregation, our community, to go on that website and find the ways and make the commitments in which we can improve ourselves, in which we can grow, whether it's in our Torah learning or whether it's in our midos and our personal attributes, to be better people, to be inspired by those who perished in this time of darkness, to find the ways in which we can find inspiration and light that won't make the darkness disappear, but certainly will make life worth living and meaningful, even in difficult times. Shabbat begins and ends with the candles. The Shabbat candles on Friday night and the Havdalah candle on Saturday night. One of the symbols of these candles is that on Friday night, the candles are standing side by side, separate from each other. On Saturday night, the wicks are intertwined in the Havdalah candle, because the light is meant to bring us closer together, to remind us that our souls are interconnected, that when something happens to a Jew in Meron, when something happens to a Jew from New Jersey or from Israel or from wherever it is in the world, that we are all connected. When a light is extinguished, our lights are extinguished. When a light is kindled, that illuminates, that brings inspiration to us all. So I hope it's a Shabbat of comfort and inspiration, and we'll keep the memories of Nachman Daniel ben Aryeh Tzvi and Miriam Ilana in our minds as we light Shabbat candles this week, and we'll keep the memories of all those who perished in our hearts and in our prayers moving forward. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. One of my favorite texts to sing each Shabbat is from the Shachari Kiddusha. Mimkomcha Malkeinu Tofia. From your place, your kingship will emanate. And where is that place? Yerushalayim Ircha, your city, Jerusalem. It's a place that is so dear to so many of us, and for different reasons. It's a place where I learned to be a cantor. It's a place where I eat some of my favorite foods. It's a place where I brought my boys, where my wife and I honeymooned. It's a place where so many dear friends have become like family. And it's a place that I try to put myself emotionally every time I get up to daven. And so I'm thrilled to share with you a concert piece of Mimkomcha, written by the great cantor Yossele Rosenblatt, conducted by my teacher Naftali Hirschtick, from another Yom Yerushalayim concert years ago. It's a special, special interpretation that is inspired by what I heard when I was at the Great Synagogue of Jerusalem singing in the choir and accompanying my teacher. Mimkomcha Malkeinu Tofia. From a reunited Jerusalem, may your inspiration reach us all wherever in the diaspora we may be. Shabbat Shalom.